I didn't know much about it, period. And at some point, I don't know how many years, 5 years back, maybe more, some of the other senior teachers from US had learned it. And so I was kind of thinking, okay, one more thing. But some reason, a part of me was thinking, if good, not that I should run after it. So I'm giving you the history. I don't know why that was, but maybe in organizations there's a tendency to go for the next technique. But anyway, recently when we were in India, Guruji said, oh, you haven't done it? Do it. So I'm like, no better time, because Guruji's... And he's really never adjusted anything in my sadhana. I learned the kriya and I did my meditation, and he never gave any specifics. So that somehow meant a lot to me. He's saying, oh, do this thing. And so it's like anything else he says to do, then I'm like, let's go. And literally I arrived at the yajna, and I knew, okay, there's a yajna, and I'm going to do the thing. And the person who was kind of coordinating for me, because I was just by myself, he said, well, who's going to show you how to do, I forget what he said, the sandhya? I said, I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I don't know what it is, period, So, literally we did the yajna, and he said, you have to, afterwards, the pandit, he said, you have to do it, I said, no problem. And so the person coordinating the whole thing, he said, okay, I'll show you. So every day we would sit and we would, go through it. So,
how did it impact your sadhana?
Yeah, well, that was just a little bit of the lead up to it. But so literally the yajna, of course, was phenomenal. Like you're just there, so simple, but I remember walking back like, in a different state. And it's a definite 2-hour yajna, is enough to change, your mind. And then I went to see Guruji, and that was amazing, because he looked so happy. Oh, you did it? Oh my God, come back later, and it was so like, for me that meant a lot. So then we went and we did the chant. We had to go through it, and it was just looked like, oh my God, there's so much, this is not a small thing. Like, I'm going to have to learn, all this. And I know Guruji is very particular about the chanting, and I know I have to do it properly, correctly. And so we happened to be in the ashram at the time, and we had time. We didn't have any other responsibilities. So I would just do it. It was an hour each session, and do it 3 times. For me, because, I would do it with the person, but then I thought I was leaving, and then Guruji said, stay back, blah, blah, extra information you don't need. But I ended up just having an audio version, and it was call and response, so I would do it for a whole hour, and then meditate after for 20 minutes, that whole thing. So it was very powerful. It was like being in the ashram, doing that, very noticeable. Even Kasha said, do you notice any change? And I'm like, well, she said, I do. And then I started to actually, because I was just immersed in it, and I started to notice, oh, this is like a very noticeable change, in the mind, in the energy in the body, so many factors. Anyway, so I was really, at the beginning, just trying to, keep it up. Even in the ashram, it had its challenges, to make time, and da-da-da. And it became, for some reason it was clear to me that this was like something you enliven and you don't just leave it, So to keep going with it. But literally come back to the experience, which is probably all the rest isn't so important for our purposes here, but the experience was very, very interesting. I've been meditating so many years, I teach, and I know the whole principle of how the mind gets caught in things, what we call stress, how it comes and sticks on. But it was so striking that this process, which is so ancient, is so effective even now. It takes you outside of your normal routine and puts you into a brief window of a sadhana, a very specific sadhana practice. And the mind shifts. It does it with meditation, no doubt. It does it with kriya, no doubt, all those things. And this was also touching on other levels, that maybe is a little different than just the meditation. So this tendency, this is what I really noticed. This tendency, I'm not saying so much about my sadhana, but in the activity side of it. I'll give you an example. Okay, I teach the advanced course. Now when you teach, the people are releasing whatever emotions, whatever they're going through is coming up, in the silence. Everyone who's done a silence course knows what that is. Now as a teacher, you feel all that stuff. And to some degree, it sticks with you. Not that long. Usually you go back to your room, you meditate, it moves on. This was so fascinating. I would be in the course, so I know exactly year after year, course after course, what happens in my own physiology being on a course, and that some energy is there and you kind of brush it off and you move on. This, when we do the sandhya, first of all, just to sit there, we're already sitting so many hours, and even to do sahaj is kind of a challenge because you've been sitting. It's now your dinner break, and then you're going to do your sahaj. You feel a little restless. With this, did not feel restless at all, which was a big surprise. That was one thing. But then, it was like if you had dust on something and you just rush some water and it just, that fast. It just was like this instant clearing of whatever emotional kind of stuff that I would usually notice feeling, picking up from the course. So it's really fascinating. But I'd experienced that anyway, like in the day-to-day routine, and then a cumulative kind of effect of it, that you also feel your mind is like more centered. But this little window, because it was almost like it's such a repeated experience, so it was so definable, like, oh, this is clearly happening because of the sandhya. Now, all that in my, how I would translate, just those experiences is this, your mind gets stuck on stuff. It constantly gets stuck. And it's not like it gets stuck forever, but it's enough. It's enough time to disturb your day, to do this thing. And this just clears it out. So your mind goes back to this sattvic, kind of element. If anyone's listening to this, remember that. Don't just take it like something light and then toss it.